Were you in World War II?
No, I was,
How'd you beat the
I
Fist?
went, I didn't, wasn't looking to beat the rap, but I was, had gone to work for the
You're about old enough, weren't
Union
you?
Pacific Railroad. Oh, yes, too bad I was married and had a couple kids when my name came up in the draft. And I registered, I was taken into the physical and so on and so forth, but I was classified, defense work. See, I was on the railroad and they wouldn't take you if you were working at a defense job and you had any children. They didn't want, you were part of it was better than putting you in the army because you knew your work, don't you know?
Mm.
And the railroad was a job that, well, it was most important to the trying to win the war. If you didn't have the railroads, you would never won the war. The American railroads were excellent, you know, and they were, at that time, they really worked. They don't work now, but they really worked, you know, then.
What did you do?
Well, I was mainly on the road as a brakeman, and I rode the steam engines and the head end up there, the old Mikados and high wheel Mikes and low wheel Mikes and the big Malleys and the high wheel Pacifics, the famous engines, steam engines that you, being a young man, that's where they put me, riding the point, called it. You know, I sat behind the fireman, biting a lot of dust, you know, up there. And those were great days because we would leave, well, we'd leave the Dalles, Oregon, and we'd take off and it'd take you, traffic was so heavy, it'd take you 14, 15, 16 hours to get to Pendleton. That's a couple hundred miles from the Dalles up Union Pacific. Sometimes I went into Umatilla. Sometimes I worked in the yard at Umatilla. I worked on passenger on the Portland Rose out of Portland up to Pendleton, and lived the life of a brakeman, railroad man. Those were very romantic days because the steam engine was on its way out. This was during the war and prior to the war, and the diesel would come in after that. You see, they got rid of the steam engine because they were about 30% efficient, and the diesel's, you know, I don't know, it's 52% efficient, you know, and so on. And that was an experience that I really enjoyed, but I was awfully glad to get off of it after the war because it was the same old track, you know, and we go back and forth on that track.
Where'd you used to ride to?
I had rides from Portland, Oregon to Pendleton, Oregon, distance of, a total distance of 200 and some miles. I don't know the exact mileage. And it got kind of tiresome, you know. But we had one train we'd get out of Portland, and it was called the merchandise train, number 10. It was all passenger equipment. They had boxcars that were specially made to fit on a passenger train, which meant they could go real fast. And they had Timken roller bearing wheels, where the other boxcar wheel was a Babbitt type of bearing thing. Well, you couldn't run them too fast because they'd burn up, you know, the journals wouldn't burn up on them. So we'd load that train would be loaded, and we'd have about 15, 20 cars in that train, and take off with a passenger engine, and head up Sullivan's Gulch. It's still there. You know, you've driven over it lots of time there in Portland. And we'd highball up that old track, and we'd have that train going at times, you know, 70, 80, 90 miles an hour up that.
90 miles an hour.
You bet, boy,
Fast for
on
a
the
train.
straight track, boy. That sucker was going, boy.
Is that
And
kind
we'd
of
make
fast
it
for a
all the
train?
way. We'd make it all the way to Hood River for water, which is remarkable, because it was a steam engine and it ran on water, you know. And that sucker was loaded in there in Portland with water, and you never worried about the oil. You had plenty of oil, but the water was the key, you know. And we'd end up there, and there'd be about that much water left in that tank. Boy, that was, if you ran out of water, so you'd blow the boiler up.
Oh, it wouldn't? You could just
Oh,
pour
well,
more water
there's
in?
no way to cool it down. It'd just blow it higher than a kite, you know.
You never blew one up?
Well, no, you didn't even dare to think about it, you know, 'cause you wouldn't, you'd be, you'd be in heaven, you know. But, we'd make it to Hood River, and sometimes we'd, pick up a car there. They'd have a load, a hot shot load of pears or apples or something, or cherries going someplace. And we had the same time as the streamliner on that train. We had the same speed as the streamliner. And that was an exciting train. Boy, I tell you, that sucker, man, you go up that old gulch around those curves, going up the Columbia River. You've been up the Columbia there.
That would scare the hell out of me, those cliffs and stuff, those
Oh,
tunnels, I don't know.
It was on the water grade,
Yeah.
but man, you didn't know it was around you, you know.
Well, is that that old track that you can see when you drive up the highway?
Well, the track is still, the same track is still there.
There's like some old pylons that are kind of falling down.
They've straightened it out with riprap, a lot of it, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of bends in it yet, but we'd ride that train, we got rights all over the trains to Pendleton, and that was a hell of a ride. That was 230 miles. We'd go just as fast as that sucker'd go.
You wouldn't have to stop, but the trains have to get out of your way or something?
Everybody'd have to get out of your way. And boy, I tell you, we were rolling. That sucker, man, by the time you got to Pendleton, everything was moving, you know. It was full blast. And we'd take on water at Hood River, and then we'd get up as far as, as Boardman and take on water, and then we'd make it into Pendleton. And, those were exciting days. And then we would get trains back. You'd be called for a train coming back out of Pendleton. Now these were all steam engines. These weren't diesel. These were the old steam whistle and the bell and the whole thing, you know. And I'd get to run that engine. I'd sit there, the engineer would want to eat his lunch or something, and I'd pull that throttle and sit there and run that engine. Man, I'd be going down there just to sing it, you know. And it's exciting, you know, really exciting thing. We had come down there one time, and we were in a high wheel passenger engine, boy, that would, I never went so fast in my whole life, and the guy claimed we were going 90, and I believed him. It's coming downhill, you know. Fantastic.